I think the energy levels are going down. Let's try for a final time. We have the panelists also. Let's show some energy. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for that response because we have a power pack session, a panel discussion right here in front of you all, and the topic is reskilling the workforce for future of tooling. And for the same, may I request Ashish Varma, CEO, Prime Graphite Private Limited, to join us on the stage as the moderator for the same. Huge round of applause for Mr. Ashish. Joining him on the panel, we have Ashish Mathur, Maruti Suzuki, India. Huge round of applause. Next up, may I request Mr. Avinash Kapoor, MD, Helvoet, Rubber and Plastics Technologies, to join us here. Huge round of applause. Next, Mr. Guruprasad Rao, Kappu, Professor and Dean, School of Designs, NMIMS, will be joining us. Huge round of applause for him. Finally, may I request Mr. Christopher K. Raj, Management Consultant and former Director, NTTF, to please join in the panel. Huge round of applause for all the gentlemen here.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sure everybody enjoyed the nice lunch like we all did. And our job as a panelist is tougher now to keep people awake and keep them engrossed. I think judging by the quality of people here, it should not be a problem, because just to bring everybody up to speed, for the people who weren't here yesterday, one of the common threads that we've seen when it comes to scaling the tooling industry, and that also goes back to why we are having this discussion. Simply put, to grow or to scale up, we need man, machine, material method. Sitting here in India, there's ample business, there's ample opportunity. Machines, money is no longer a problem, as you all know, in India. But the big problem is people, you know. कहाँ से skilled लोग लाएं, manufacturing में कहाँ से लाएं, and specifically tooling, where we feel that we really need skilled people. This is where the real challenge is coming. So this is what this discussion is all about. We have a very, very eminent panel, very, very experienced panel. So we hope to bring out a few answers. We're going to try and share as many tips as we can. We'll try to pick your brains, your experience, and ensure that everyone in the audience leaves with some input about people skills. So before we start, I'm going to have just a free flow question to everybody, whoever would like to take it first. Skilled log chahiye, skilled log chahiye. Are we banking too much on skilled people, or do we have to accept the fact that we're not going to get skilled people, uske liye kuch karna padega? Or do you think that skilled log hi lene padte hain? So just a quick comment from whoever would like to take the question first before we start going ahead into other questions. So Mr. Raj, you want to go first?
Yeah. Because I had the experience of working in the companies, factories, operations, and especially tooling in Molex. And then also heading the training in NTTF. Yes, you don't get ready-made skilled people. That's 100% sure. So going back to my days, we used to find that they picked up a handful of guys who are passionate in certain things and not necessarily too much of IQ, but then passionate. And they were put through training. So that's what they did. So the base was there, and they built the training in the technology and the processing and the tooling. So that's how we have to do. There is no other option as I see it.
Right. So rather than wait for skilled people to drop from somewhere, what you're saying is look for passion and look for people who are there and start get to training them. Right? Anybody else wants to take that question? कि skilled लोगों का wait करना है या अपने हाथ में ताकत लेनी है?
Success criteria. Skill is something which has to be built over a period of time. It is a learning plus experience is what makes skill, you know, and that component and retaining them is also important. Right. And I can say any industry, be it tooling or other, skill I think, plays a very important role in manufacturing today.
What I would say is, yes, it's a difficult situation, but the best is to hire freshers from the tool room training institutes, the government institutes. Unfortunately, there aren't too many. There are few of them, but best is to hire from there and then further enhance their skills in-house with training programs and on-the-job training.
Kapoor sir, my first question, because of hiring, आपने बात करी दी, आपने छेड़ी दी है. So there is a very particular question which I like to put to you. How do you attract people to manufacturing? How do you attract people to tooling? Because young people today have so many options, especially you're coming from Pune, Bangalore, places like these, you know. Please share some practices or tricks that you may use to get these people to come to your company.
Okay, so I'll talk about what we have done, and maybe some others may be doing, and if not, maybe if they find it good, they can replicate it. Firstly, all our tool room people we take on our roles. We don't take through contractors, something. They have to be your employees. Okay, and we definitely pay our tool room technicians or tool makers higher than what we pay to others, even molding operators and all. We pay the tool room staff a little higher. Okay, and apart from the compensation, we also look at going beyond the statutory government social security. We go a little beyond that, including insurance for family and all small things, but yes. Fortunately, with all these small steps, we have a very low attrition. So we would have maybe just a couple of 1 or 2 guys leaving in a year from our tool room. So probably if you take some good talent and then develop it and keep them well, you provide a good working environment, they stay for a long term. Of course, it's a reality that some will leave because what we have seen maximum, most of them who've left they've left for jobs abroad. So there's no comparison to them. You can't do that. But I think best is to hire from government institutes and retain them in-house, train them in-house. Thank you.
Thank you for those tips, sir. Rao Saab, a very specific question to you. When you are hiring for the tool rooms, we generally look at skill, and when we say skill, it means machine chalane aata hai ki nahi, design karne aata hai ki nahi, but we don't talk about managerial competency. So in your experience, because you've had background both in education as well as in corporate sector, when you're hiring for tool rooms, how much to weigh attitude कितना देखना है, managerial competency कितनी देखनी है और physical skill कितना, core skill कितना देखना है? How do you balance in which is a good mix?
I think it is very simple in the sense, if you want them to work in tool room on, manually on machines, and you obviously have a diploma holder who spends more time on, machine setting, getting the sense of those quality, getting by 0.00 kind of thing, movement. It has to be sensed. While managerial component, we would probably hire a postgraduate. So a guy with engineering background who does tool and die making, it is called tool engineering and design, where they actually learn how to manage. So they learn optimization, for example, PERT CPM, operation research. These are very important as a manager to optimize and also giving quotations, understanding the specification, and having a good English. These are some of the important skills they need as a manager. And I think they should be good with people. So people, how to manage people, those are the components which are required. But I think as a diploma holder, one who is senior enough builds his own team. It is like a cricket team or a football team where you have a captain. The captains are the people who might be future managers. So I think a very senior person can also be trained to get into that shoes. Thank you.
Very interesting. So my next question goes to Mr. Raj, because you've had a background in NTTF as well as the management side of things. Do you think really the technical people coming from CPET, NTTF, diploma backgrounds, can they be trained into management skills? We really appreciate your experience over all these years.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm the living example. I'm a student of NTTF, right? So I rose to become a managing director of a company. So it's quite possible, very easily possible. So it is just that you spot the right talent and give them the right inputs. And a company like Molex is where I worked. So they really trained me well. So that's where I simply believe that, because the tooling is one place where you need heavy focus on everything. It's an all-round thing, it's a process, it's a processing, it's the precision of making something, and the planning. It's got overall thing. It's like making a machine itself, if you look at it. So hence, I believe that this is possible. So yeah, that's what it is.
Thanks for those inputs,
Maybe I'll just
Please,
add
please
a small
please
one
yes.
sentence
Please
here.
do.
Our business development manager is a tool maker from NTTF.
Great.
Okay, so I think that answers that. I think people can develop easily.
I want to add one point here, that when these people actually do things, make them work, there is enormous amount of confidence they gain. And that's the important thing by which they can learn anything afterwards. That's important.
So taking this cue, I'd like to move to the next series of questions, because you spoke a little bit about hiring and developing people, and now my specific question to Ashish ji, because he's coming from the OEM background from Maruti and a long illustrious career at Maruti. Ashish, how does an OEM like Maruti look at this problem? Last 2 days, we've been seeing a lot of people, and as SMEs, our favorite job is to get together and cry. आदमी नहीं साहब, आदमी नहीं, मैं तो क्या कर सकता हूँ, आदमी नहीं मिलता है, skilled आदमी नहीं मिलता है. Is it different from OEMs? Do you struggle like us? Or is it easy, भाई मारुति है तो भाई आदमी तो लाइन लगा खड़ा है. And it's not about Maruti, it's about Honda or whatever, any OEM, How is it from your perspective? How does Maruti look at training and developing and solving this problem?
Thanks, Ashish. You made a very important point. For Maruti, skilling is very integral to our business. I think this is established in the previous discussion. We have gone ahead and we've started investing in skilling. It's been almost 18, 20 years that Maruti is focusing on skill development. And how we are doing is, I'll just explain that to you. We are aligning our skill effort with what is there in the industry. So the ITIs, the diplomas. We're not trying to recreate or rebuild the ecosystem. We are trying to work with the ecosystem. What are we doing is, upgrading the infrastructure in these ITIs, these diploma colleges, ensuring that the training quality, the trainers are well trained. We do the TOT programs. We are bringing in our own training content. We're bringing aspects of soft skills, something that doesn't quite really exist in the current curriculum. The effort here is to ensure that the quality of students coming from these colleges are more employable. They get an understanding of what the industry is. So we also offer a 7th-month on-job training, which is at Maruti. And I would also like to mention that some of our component manufacturers, Minda and even some of our dealers have started now offering on-job training as a part of this program. We don't restrict ourselves only to Maruti, but also offer this program to our associates. And at the end of it, the person is quite employable, he's skilled, he's aware of what the industry wants. And through these efforts, we nearly train around 16,000 people a year. Yeah, so every year we do that. And that does take care of our internal requirement, and also a lot of that supports the auto industry. So our effort is through these initiatives.
So thanks for the input, Ashish, about on-job training. Do you also have any kind of a training center, or do you have a setup where you actually train these people?
Yes. We have multiple level of interventions. The first and foremost is an institute that we've set up called Japan India Institute for Manufacturing. The government of India and the government of Japan, we got into an MOC in 2016 to develop 30,000 shop floor workers. And Maruti, as a part of it, we've set up 3 gyms, 2 in Gujarat and 1 in Haryana. This is a facility owned and managed by Maruti Suzuki in partnership with the government. So this is one initiative. So the content, the training, everything is provided by Maruti. Apart from that, we are supporting some 57 government ITIs, wherein we are upgrading their machinery, their equipments, their trainers. We are sending in our experts into those colleges, training those students. So this is the second level of intervention. And also, we are among the very few companies which has something called the Flexi MOU, which is with the government of India, wherein we take people, ideally a 10th pass or somebody who's attained the age of 18, we train them in the industry. We train them for almost 2 years. It is a good mix of theoretical training and on-job training. So we have these 3 programs which is purely focusing on creating shop floor manpower.
Thanks for those inputs, Ashish. I mean, to be honest, I'm quite amazed at what an OEM like Maruti is doing. It's very impressive, and I think while we cannot be an OEM, but I'm sure that in our own way, how do we train people, how do we invest in them, it's a great input for us all, My next question would be to Mr. Rao. With your background, sir, there's a big fad, because when we talk of retaining people, we talk about developing high potential employees. So, but when it comes to tooling sector, ये सब हम सुनते नहीं है भाई, आओ machine चलाओ, design करो, घर जाओ. So have you seen any initiative like this where high potential employees are rewarded with better training, with better skill development, and does it work in tooling and this kind of background?
I think very much it will work because these employees have skills. They need a level playing ground. A painter needs a good canvas. And if companies can provide it, and added people, sent to abroad to learn new skills. And again, they are given interesting tasks to complete or lead teams after that. I think it is going to really help to retain them. Monetary things, of course, they also help, but more than that, the esteem values by which they'll be able to take up a section, give freedom to them to manage things. I think these are human resources really can be honed. There is nothing like what potential you can expect. But I think handling it is very important. If they can take care of their needs, which are non-monetary, I think it is extremely good to have retain people. Yes.
That's a great input, sir, that management development program is just maybe equal to giving challenges to people. So I love that insight. Thank you for sharing that. My next question to Mr. Raj. Sir, with this tooling background, and you, of course, your very strong background in NTTF, do really people want to learn? And are we supposed to force them to learn? Because हम यहाँ learning की बात कर रहे हैं, training की बात कर रहे हैं. But a lot of people come with attitude, and we heard this from a foreigner yesterday, by the way, on the stage, that you Indians, you really think that you've made it, मुझे कौन सिखाएगा? How do you handle this in training, especially in tool rooms, where people feel that because I'm in tooling, I have really skill which is unparalleled now, So how do you get this spark in people? How do you get them to train and retrain? Because it's part of their career, right?
Yeah, I strongly believe in this ASK model, which is attitude, skills, and knowledge. So knowledge is what you learn in your college and in your universities, wherever. And then skill is what you develop, how to apply that knowledge. And for fundamentally, it is all the attitude that forms the whole thing. So attitude is a big base in the triangle, and the middle is the skill, and the third is the knowledge. So the kind of management that we have to initiate, initiatives in your companies, is to develop these steps. So attitude, skills, and management. In that order, if you do, then I see fantastic results coming out. So it kind of blemishes over a period of time. So this is what is my finding.
So that's a great input. What it means is, when it comes to training, you can't just push people to get technical training low. You have to work on the softer aspects, and the desire has to come from within. So it has to be a complete package of ASK, as you said, कि उसका attitude और skills पे काम कर, attitude पे काम करो तो skills and knowledge automatic उसका बढ़ेगा. It can't be just go and learn this technical skill. Before we move ahead, Ashish, a very specific question to you because you're doing so much work as an OEM. Are there any government schemes for skill development? And I think part of your designation also is about CSR. So can CSR funds be used? Is it allowed?
I'll take up the government part because that's something which, honestly, I would say the government is for doing a lot. This year, if you recall, in the budget, we have an outlay of 60,000 crore, which is probably the highest ever so that the government has put in this domain. Now, specifically, there are several programs which can be utilized where the government is willing to sponsor. Now, when I talk of the ITI, it's typically a 1-year program, a 2-year program, a diploma is a 3-year program, engineering would be a 4-1. Now, we're typically looking at, 2 mahine mein seekh ke can he start working with us? Because that's also where our business interest is. The gestation period needs to be small. Now, there are these programs called the short-term programs. There is a new scheme called, Recruit, Train, and Deploy. Under the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, you have several states also which are sponsoring, wherein you can take a person who's ideally a 10th pass or a 12th pass, train him for 2 months, and then deploy him. So you can tailor the training as per your job role, and then the entire training is sponsored by the government. So eventually, there are a lot of funds which are available. A lot of sectors, construction, a lot of industries are using it. Somehow I believe the automotive has been slightly laggard, because probably it's a lack of awareness among us. But this is something that I see a lot of our component manufacturers doing it, wanting to get into this space and ensuring that, this schemes are availed and we are able to train. Now, on the CSR part, yes, skilling is covered under CSR. Maruti, all the things that we have done in all these years is all covered under CSR, be it upgradation of the college, ITI colleges, setting up gyms, which is a completely, bottom-up investment that we do there. Then you could talk about, putting in trainers, sponsoring the OPEX model. So everything is actually covered under CSR. And I would also urge wherever it is possible, do utilize CSR funds in skilling. It is the need of the hour.
Wow, I mean, to be honest, I've never heard of government funds or schemes for skilling, especially in the SME sector. So that's a great input, Ashish. Thanks very much. So we spoke a little bit about hiring, we've spoken about training. I'm going to move to the third topic. How do you retain people? Because that's a big pain point. In the tooling industry, in the manufacturing sector, it's something that we've argued, spoken, discussed at length over last 2 days. So my question would be to Kapoor Saab now. Specifically, sir, you said maybe 1-2% attrition. It's unbelievable. Please share some secrets with us. आप क्या कर रहे हो? क्या दवाई खिलाते हो? क्या खिलाते हो लोगों को? Please share something with us.
Okay. Now, firstly, one is to provide them a good working atmosphere. Okay, which means that provide them some leeway to think and work, problem solve. So we encourage them to come up with solutions if there's a perennial problem in a tool or in a new tool, there's some problem coming. And then to develop the soft skills in a running tool when it goes for maintenance, PM or breakdown, especially breakdown, we make every tool maker do a YY. Okay, if it's a major breakdown, they have to do a YY, and we have a software, they have to put the YY analysis in that. So they start learning the analysis part and taking part in this. And improvements, yes, we encourage that they come up with improvements. We have reward schemes also for Kaizens and improvements which we do. Then sometimes we do tools there's a very tight timeline from the customer, and we have to do a tool which involves a lot of work in 2 months, 3 months. So we give special incentives because we know that people will work more hours extra. Every Sunday they'll come and work. So we share some of the money we get from the customer with our people. So that is one thing. Then, of course, on the softer side, we take care of if anybody has an emergency in the family, medical emergency, otherwise, we support them financially. If somebody's got, we've had instances where we paid salaries for 1 year, 1.5 years, somebody had a kidney problem, couldn't come to work. So we have supported them for long terms also, and treatments and otherwise. So these are some of the small things we do. Once in a year, we do some family get together. So I think maybe some of these things help us in retaining the people.
That's really brilliant, and thank you so much for sharing some of those secrets. I heard it loud and clear. If you want to retain people, you have to develop and care. That's the message I got. You have to develop them, you have to care for them, and the biggest, surprisingly good thought I got from you is if you engage them, they will be interested in work. And probably, I think as an industry, we really need to think about it. Are we giving them enough challenges to keep them engaged in work? I think we are all probably guilty of that. We expect people to come and ज़िंदगी भर वो एक ही काम करते रहेंगे जो होने वाला नहीं है. But this is how I think we somehow treat our people. So these are great thoughts. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, Ashish, I missed out one thing. Pay them well also.
I think it's somewhere in my questions here, but I think that's a no-brainer now. There is no other option. I think we were discussing with Ashish also just earlier, कि salary के बिना तो you just cannot. These are all perks which come at the top, and I think as MSMEs we are a lot of guilty of for that also, you know. Related question to Mr. Raj. Sir, you are now working as a consultant, as a management consultant, you know, and when it comes to tooling, I always, when I visit people and I ask them, do you have KPIs, do you have performance measurement? अरे सर टूलिंग में काम कर रही है, सब यहाँ नहीं चलता है. You can't measure OE, you can't look at machines, and क्या बात कर रहे हो आप, you know? And if you try to put too much pressure, and then I feel it leads to attrition or demotivation in people, you know. So regarding this mindset, this culture of performance, improvement, is it applicable to tooling?
Absolutely, yes. The reason I tell you is that when you recruit a tooling guy, you know, for example, a tool maker, if he doesn't know the fundamentals, we think cost and estimation is a management skill. No, it is a tooling skill, right? And how fast it can be made, how efficiently it can be made. This is a fundamental. And then next thing comes is your quality, cost, delivery, which matters to product cost. And tooling is, you have the machinery, but then you have a press or a molding machine. But the tool is a guy who is going to play the major role in the quality of the product. You can have a top-class Mercedes-Benz machine, but then if tooling is not good, it's of no use. So it matters a lot. And the tooling cost. So this correlation should be known to the tooling guy, right? So, and then you have the OEE part, which directly matters the process cost. And tooling is the most influential item in the OE. Always the breakdown is not the machine, it's the tooling. So that is the next part. And then fundamentally, one has to know how does it all contribute to the gross margin and the PBT. Teach them that. So they know that they are involved in the final financials of the company. Otherwise, they work like some kind of shop floor guy, you know. So this has to change. And the places where I worked, that's how we were taught. So that's how our contribution just enhanced, you know. So this is what I think is the change that is required.
Maybe I can add, so I'm jumping in, but see, what we've also done is that we've divided our company into several mini companies, and our tool room is a mini company. So the tool room manager, every month, he has a P&L, okay, and we review that. And so that's one of the things. And then they have metrics like MTBF, MTTR, and new molds, how many dimensions they achieved first time in the FOT. Minimum is 80% is the target, and how much they achieve. So we've got certain metrics every month, which is reviewed also for the tool room.
So I hear it loud and clear. You have to link people's performance to results, company results if you can. And if you do that and if you demand results, तो ही उसको मजा आएगा काम करने में. Otherwise, he takes it as a burden. कि एक तो मैं टूलिंग में काम कर रहा हूँ और नाउ दे आर डिमांडिंग कि इतना मशीन चलना चाहिए, इतना वही आना चाहिए, एंड आई शुड बी ऑल्सो रिक्वायर्ड टू लुक एट टूलिंग कॉस्ट और कटर कॉस्ट फॉर दैट मैटर. So that's something which I also learned. Rao sir, this next question to you, which has also been very much discussed amongst everybody who's been here last 2 days, कि we depend a lot on NTTF, CPET and these graduates coming, and it's obvious the way Indian tooling is bound to grow or is poised to grow, we cannot depend on few institutes to give these people. Is it time to move away from only institutes and look at outsider industry, look at attitude, look at freshers, and depend on these people, bring them into the tooling sector, in manufacturing sector in general? In your opinion, because you've worked, you're still working in the academic sector as well, does it work? लोगों से बाहर से लाके उनको आप engage करो. Does it work in your experience?
I think it is important to consolidate what we have. We have some of the best institutes in the country already, whether it is Indo-German or government tool rooms or NTTF, various centers, CPET various centers. They have, over a period of time, lot of tacit knowledge. And I think people, the alumnus who went, like him, for example, they should mentor the new batches, actually. And in tooling, there is a lot of things which are not taught in either engineering or diplomas. You know, knowing the concentricity, perpendicularity, parallelity is a skill actually. And they sense the movement, you know, measurement, metrology. They actually, the way it has to be measured, 10 different people can measure 10 different dimensions for the same item. That means today, of course, we are moving towards technology, CMM and all have come, but the pulse of the person who is handling it is very important. Now, there is a big role that can be played by industry also when we say this. Now, industry has the experts who are ex GTTC or NTTF or SEEP SAPETs. Those people can actually go and mentor, and industry can actually block, they can budget. These are the resources I need from you. They can adopt them and give them additional training. So, for example, Maruti, for example, if they need a particular thing, they can train a batch of people from a particular institute. Well, their works manager or people can actually go and say, this is what I want. And then you see, it becomes a game changer. I think so. I am suggesting industry academia partnership in short. It can do wonders. It has done everywhere, a great thing, and why not in India? We can definitely do it. Thank you.
I just love that thought of mentoring. It's something which I think is, or at least we think from the industry, is reserved for software companies. Mentoring programs चल रहे हैं, and you know the fast track programs चल रहे हैं. And the thought just suddenly struck me that we all have graduates from these institutes, जो 2 4 5 साल काम कर चुके हैं. Why don't we make them mentors? Give them 5 or 10 people, let them train. So that's a great insight. I loved that.
I recollect my GTTD days. I used to go at 7 o'clock in the morning, punch. At 10 o'clock in the night, Prahalad Rao used to come from NGF and teach us die casting. And we were there. It will go on till 11:30. Then we are on to our drawing boards. And it's we used to have exams which are 72 hours. I think we should get back. There is no shortcut here in learning. And those guys, those great masters who have done, toiled, they can bring in the transformation. And today, if the new institute is missing them, find them in industry. They are there. Thank you.
I'll just add to what he just mentioned. In fact, yesterday there was a discussion with all industry partners and the Ministry of Skill Development, and the entire bureaucracy was there. And I think this point of partnership between industry and academia is the need of the hour in the skilling space, because this is also what the government is actually wanting. So just wanted to make that short note there.
Yeah, can I just add one point? Because I was in NTTF, I know the pain. So I had the opportunity to rewrite the syllabus for NTTF. So what we did is we put the job requirements in the end and then wrote down the syllabus backwards. Because if the purpose is not kept, then you can't write the base. So what I found is we have to train in the institutes only at the base level. For example, NTTF, you have at least 2,000 kids passing out, right, every year. You have 2,000 NTTF students coming out. But the problem is only probably about 25-30% of them be fit to go right on the job. The balance is a problem. So that's where the industry can really help. Because like we all discussed, we can't get IIT graduates for tool making. You have to get ordinary people and create them, make them extraordinary. That's the funda. So there's an industry also should pitch into that. Because you take fundamentally strong skills and build them into the higher skills and the shop floor requirements. So this is what I think will work.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think the discussion is very, very clear. We can't wait for Amitabh Bachchan to come. We have to develop Amitabh Bachchan from our own team. I think that is very, very clear. And all these points of mentoring and, partnering with institutes and getting, we have to inculcate the desire to learn amongst our team. And I think that's the only way it'll run. I'll move towards the last topics in the last few minutes that we have. And the specific question to Kapoor sir, because he's been very passionate, and I know because I've met him, I've been to his company. And it's also been discussed these 2 days. How do you see gender diversity in manufacturing? Is it possible? Will we see China happening in India, where about half the workforce, or even sometimes more than half the workforce is women? Can that happen in India? And are you seeing it anywhere, Kapoor sir?
Okay, I think that's very much possible, and that's the need of the hour also. I'll talk about our company. So we, last at least 10-15 years, we've had at least 20-25% ladies working, but primarily in inspection and assembly, and some quality, so these areas. Then maybe around 6 months back, we were perennially facing shortage of molding machine operators. So we thought, why not put girls on molding machines in the A shift at least. And we started that, and that experiment has worked very well. Today there are at least 15 girls working on molding machines in the A shift in our company. So now we're looking at the tool room also. We're looking at assembly operations and polishing operations. So talking about tool making per se, see, design, machining is only one part of it, maybe 60%. 30-40% is matching, assembly of the tool, polishing. So that is where I think it takes much more time for skills to be developed. And like I said, polishing is a major thing. And I think polishing is one area, maybe 10 years down the line, you'll not get polishers. Most of the polishers I see are white-haired people, gray or white-haired. And I don't see freshers getting into that. So maybe 10 years down the line, we'll not find dye polishers. So it's time that we start training, especially maybe girls into this. And maybe the tool room training institutes can also start intake of girls in their programs, which should help. They'll provide some basic training. If not, then at least industry has to do that. And it's very much possible to train them and take it forward. And it should work well, I think.
It's a great thought. We have to think 5 or 10 years from now. And that's something which you are doing. That कहाँ से हमको dye polishers मिलेंगे, कहाँ से हमको machinists मिलेंगे. We have to start in a country like India, as somebody rightly said, in a country of 140 crores people, if you are saying, boss, आदमी नहीं है, there's something wrong with you. There is something wrong with you. There are people there, but आदमी is the typical word that we use, and I think it's very clear from your direction also, sir, that we have to move on. आदमी नहीं है, we've got enough people. We just have to do something different, The next question to be divided between Mr. Rao and Mr. Raj. We talk a lot about leadership pipeline, but again in tooling, we are always so short-staffed. We think we pay our people well, and there's no concept of leadership pipeline. But jo hai, wo kaam karega, and when the person leaves, we are stuck in the middle of nowhere because we don't have this concept of leadership pipeline. So from your experience, because you've seen a lot of companies, you work as a consultant, Mr. Raj, Mr. Rao is working on both sides. Leadership pipeline hona chahiye. Is it possible in tooling?
Okay. I think it should happen because it should be part of your business continuity plan. You know, I think there is always a sign, a highly skilled person who has now become manager. He will have 2, 3 people who are very close to him. And these are potential candidates who can replace. And I think it is important, instead of trying to see a person goes out and you are going to find a person replacement for him, why don't you make it a plan as a progression in their career? That is best actually. So a person training people and moving on and supervising them, and when they make mistakes, he is there for them to take care and support them. I think that is a better way of handling that. That means if you are not planning that, it is not good. It is because if somebody leaves, it's a risk, business risk. So how you can mitigate? Only by provisioning something for that. So planning is important.
The planning and coaching for the future.
Yes.
It has to be an essential plan. I think that's something we do.
Absolutely.
I love that word of business continuity because that's something we as MSMEs do not use that word very often. So I love that word. Mr. Raj, last word to you about that problem.
Yeah. So this problem, from what I see is, I think tooling guys who can be becoming the professionals in the organization, who can take leadership role, I feel that tooling knowledge, capability and the other managerial capabilities at 60-40 ratio. So 60% technical competency and 40% is managerial competencies. But what I see is you can't get that at the beginning. It starts off somewhere, so a beginner will be different, 3 years experienced guy will be different, but then you can actually see their inclination. So whether they are a technologist or they are heading towards becoming a technocrat, or do you see them in entrepreneurial flavor? So the company should actually engage them in that kind of progression and training and development. This works very well. I've seen that.
Absolutely brilliant, because we probably don't share the path ahead with our people, and this is the return that we get. Even they are unclear कि हमें क्या होगा मैं 2-5 साल में, and as a result that leadership pipeline is always a vacuum there. So if you make them, talk to them and mentor them and coach them, as you said, it's a great insight. My last question to Ashish, we are almost out of time, but this last question is very important because we've spoken a lot about what we do, but this is a role that government is playing. Ashish has touched upon a little bit briefly, but not many people would know, but there is a new national education policy which the government has again tweaked in the year 2024, Ashish, if I'm not mistaken. 2020. And is it any good? Do you think it will address this lack of manpower? Will it make manufacturing attractive? Will it help the manufacturing sector, Ashish? If you just mention about it.
Yeah, I guess somebody mentioned that, in Pune, you mentioned, Mr. Kapoor did mention, it's difficult, it's a challenge to ensure the person joins manufacturing and not the IT sector. If you recall, when we were in school, I remember IT companies, Microsoft setting up school, computer labs in schools. And we were wondering why was this being done. But in hindsight, it created the IT revolution in India. The intervention in schools by the software companies in 80s and early 90s actually led to where we are today in the IT front. Now the new education policy is actually trying to do the same thing by bringing in vocational skills in schools. So they are setting up skill labs in schools. Now this is very important that along with academics, आपको ये भी पता हो कि what is, how to use a small equipment, screw को कैसे करते हैं, and what is a vernier caliper. You have a basic understanding of how to actually appreciate hand skills. So when you're taught this in 8th, 9th, and 10th, and then this gives you a bit of an understanding that this is also an avenue where I would like to go into. This is more so required in government schools, where academia is really not where they excel in. So if you train them in these things, they would find a natural, inclination to take up probably an ITI. Rather than, today, who gets into an ITI? Person who's not got an admission anywhere in the country. So that's a very sad qualification to get into a college. But that is the reality. And this, dogma continues within the rest of life. So this is very important. This guy could be very good in a lot of skills, but nobody has ever discovered that. Now, NEP will help you, get there, and this will transform and will actually create a greater pool for the manufacturing industry and make in India at large. So,
Thank you for sharing that information. It's good to know that the crisis is real in the industry, there's no doubt about it. And while the industry, as we heard from the panel, a lot of it that we can do, the government is also trying its best with this new education policy. So thanks for putting some light on that. We're almost out of time. I think I would just like to thank TAGMA and the EC for giving us this esteemed panel to be able to discuss this topic and all the best practices that we have, because I think the solutions are there very much in the industry. Some of the key takeaways as I was writing down, because this is something which I struggle with also every day, and I really thank the panel for bringing it out, is we really have to be passionate, when it comes to people. We got to give them time to mature and develop. We got to treat them well. Remember, Kapoor Saab said ki, bhai, paisa to dena hi padega achha. We have to partner with academia, as Rao Saab dwelled upon it. Give them challenges, that's what's going to engage them. Ashish said a lot about training schools and government funds, which are there, and we should utilize them. We should at least know about them. So that was also learning for all of us, I think. Linking their work to P&L. How are they affecting the company, bottom line, top line? If you can share with people, I think there's nothing better than this. Coaching, mentoring them. So I think a lot of practical, great takeaways. I thank the esteemed panel for their time. And I hope that everybody goes away with all these practical tips, and hope that we can solve this problem, which is so much essential if industry and manufacturing has to grow, not only the tooling industry, but for the India as a country as a whole. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, and that was great moderation to bring out the key points and reassure the crowd with the key takeaways. Huge round of applause for our moderator and the panelists. So may I request Mr. Ashish Varma to come center stage to felicitate our panelists. Center stage, so that they can join you one by one. May I request Mr. Ashish Mathur to please come forward. Huge round of applause. Next, may I request Mr. Avinash Kapoor to please come forward. Huge round of applause for all our panelists. May I request Mr. Guruprasad Rao to please come forward. Huge round of applause. Calls for a perfect photo op as well. May I request Mr. Christopher K. Raj to also come forward. Thank you so much. And to felicitate our moderator, Mr. Ashish Varma, may I request EC member Mr. Gopalakrishnan TS to please join us on stage. Huge round of applause for all these gentlemen. That calls for a group photo op as well. I will also remind you all that we have been circulating the feedback forms, so please make sure to fill them and give them back to our team so that we are able to put you in the lucky draw options. And the forms have been there since yesterday, so we'll request you all to stay back and make sure that you do not miss out on the opportunity. There are 5 winners to be chosen, and it's an iPad which they are going to be winning. So I think you all would want to stay back till the end of the sessions today. And while we are setting the stage for the technical session, we can take a quick fun break. It seems to be a filmy Friday. We did have the mention of Amitabh Bachchan also on stage right now. So